What happens when a sushi bar CEO goes undercover and finds a cook slicing raw tuna without gloves? After handling trash, Trevor Nilsen didn't build the company, but he sure as hell had to keep it alive. His father had opened the first sushi bar in Portland back in the early 90s, a tiny counter with 6 seats and a chalkboard menu. It had grown into a chain of 7 stores across Oregon and Washington, known for sleek interiors, quality fish, and fast service. When his father passed, Trevor inherited the business at 28. He'd kept it afloat, added 2 new locations, and modernized the supply side. But lately, something didn't sit right. Customer reviews had dipped in one of the newer locations, Store 4 in downtown Tacoma. A few complaints mentioned cold rice, rude service, long wait times, but nothing concrete, nothing actionable. Trevor hadn't met most of the newer staff his district manager, Dennis, hired and trained them. Dennis always brushed things off. "It's just a few picky customers," he'd say. "People get mad if the ginger's not arranged right." It didn't feel right. Trevor wanted to see it for himself, so he shaved his beard, dyed his sandy hair black, and got a pair of thick glasses. He bought a fake ID under the name Caleb Norton, applied online using a prepaid phone, and 2 weeks later, he was scheduled for a 5-day trial as a trainee at Store 4. No one at that location had ever met him before. It was a corporate chain now. Each store had over 20 employees, and he kept a distance from daily operations. Dennis didn't even tell the store manager about the new hire. He just forwarded the application with a green light. On a humid Tuesday morning, Trevor walked in through the back door of Store 4 wearing a cheap black polo and khakis. His nerves buzzed. He hadn't worked behind a kitchen counter in over a decade. "Caleb," a voice called. A tall, thin woman in her late 30s approached, tying her apron. "I'm Rachel. I'm the manager here. Welcome." "Thanks," he replied, adjusting his glasses. "First day, I'm ready." Rachel smiled politely but looked distracted. "We're short 2 people today. Dishwasher called out and prep's running late." "I'll have Manny show you the basics." Manny was a line cook with a crooked Dodgers cap and deep bags under his eyes. "You ever worked food before?" he asked while tossing a handful of seaweed salad into a plastic bowl. "Yeah, a long time ago," Trevor said. "But I'll catch on." Manny didn't respond, he just pointed to a sink. "Start with dishes, then I'll show you how we prep rolls." The first 3 hours passed in a blur of hot water, clattering plates, and shouted orders. The kitchen was loud, no music. Just the buzz of fluorescent lights and the hiss of rice cookers. Trevor kept his head down. He watched everything. He saw one of the cooks, a guy named Tyler, sneeze into his hand and then keep slicing avocado. No one said anything. Later, when Trevor was brought to the prep table, he noticed something else. Manny pulled a tray of raw salmon from the cooler, no gloves, no hand wash. He had just wiped down a trash bin lid. "Shouldn't we wash up first?" Trevor asked, trying to sound unsure, not accusatory. Manny glanced at him. "You can if you want. I got clean hands." Trevor watched as he pressed the fish against the bamboo mat, bare fingers pressing it into rice. He felt a tight knot form in his stomach. He looked over at Rachel, who was checking her phone behind the counter. "Does Rachel ever check on the prep?" he asked quietly. Manny scoffed. "She's cool, doesn't micromanage, we just keep the orders moving." That night, Trevor sat in his car for 20 minutes before starting the engine. He stared at his hands still prunny from the morning's dishes and wondered how long this had been happening. If this was standard at one store, what about the others? The next morning, he came in early. The walk-in fridge was a mess. Boxes stacked wrong, raw fish stored above produce. A half-used roll of paper towels sat on top of a container of spicy tuna. At 10:15, a woman named Riley walked in. She looked around, frowned, and grabbed the paper towels. "This can't be here," she muttered, tossing them in the trash. "God again?" Trevor turned. "Morning, you must be Caleb." "I'm Riley, I do prep sometimes." She wore gloves. She washed her hands 4 times in the first hour. She scolded a coworker for leaving a cutting board uncleaned. She worked fast but careful. "How long you been here?" Trevor asked. 5 months, she said, wiping her forehead. I like it, but it's been rough lately. Rachel's, hands off. Manny runs the kitchen, but he cuts corners. Trevor nodded. Yeah, I've noticed, she looked at him. You keep your head down, but you see a lot, huh? He gave a small smile. Something like that. At lunch, a customer sent back a California roll, said it tasted off. Rachel rolled her eyes and told the server to offer a free drink. No one checked the ingredients, no one asked questions. That evening, Trevor pulled Rachel aside. Hey, just curious. Do we have any sanitation checklists? Rachel looked up from her tablet. Yeah, we're supposed to. Dennis sends them out monthly. Supposed to, she shrugged. Look, we're slammed. As long as no one gets sick, it's fine. You'll learn not to worry so much. Trevor didn't sleep that night. On day 3, things got worse. A new shipment came in. Fish boxes sat out for over an hour. Manny signed off without inspecting the temperature. Trevor watched as he used the same knife for eel and cucumber without wiping it once. Cross-contamination everywhere. Then came the moment that tipped it. A teenage girl, probably around 17, walked in with her little brother. They ordered a salmon bowl and miso soup. 10 minutes later, the girl came back up, pale. This soup tastes weird, she said. Rachel barely looked up. It's miso. It's fermented. No, I think it's spoiled. It smells. Trevor walked over. Can I see it? He sniffed the soup. It smelled sour off, not fermented, spoiled. Rachel waved her hand. Just give her a refund. Trevor stared at her. We should check the batch. If it's bad, it's fine. We serve dozens of bowls a day. The girl left, disappointed. Her brother looked confused. Trevor stood there, heart pounding. He looked over at Riley, who had frozen mid-clean. She shook her head slowly. That night, Trevor made a decision. He wasn't waiting until the trial was over. He was going to reveal who he was, and then things were going to change. By the time Trevor arrived on Thursday morning, a storm had already been brewing in his chest. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and every instinct in his body told him this wasn't just negligence, it was erosion. A slow decay of standards, oversight, and care. He stepped into the back entrance of Store 4 as deliveries were being rolled in on dented dollies. The driver barely made eye contact with Manny, who signed the clipboard without lifting the lid on a single container. Inside, the air was heavier than usual, humid, metallic, and faintly sour. The prep station was cluttered again. An open bucket of vinegar sat next to a stack of thawing shrimp. Trevor looked around. Rachel wasn't in yet. Riley was already slicing cucumbers, earbuds in, working fast. She noticed him and gave a nod but didn't pause. Manny leaned against the counter nursing a black coffee, watching a video on his phone. He didn't acknowledge Trevor. Trevor walked over and opened the reach-in cooler. Inside, the tuna from yesterday was still there, half-wrapped, edges already darkening. The roll labels were missing. No time stamps, no initials. Just trays of fish, loosely covered, sitting inches from open containers of scallions and imitation crab. He closed the door quietly and turned to Riley. Has anyone rotated this stuff since Tuesday? She pulled one earbud out. No, I checked it yesterday, but Manny said to leave it. Said we'd get through it by Friday. Trevor had to keep his voice steady. That tuna's turning. I know. Her voice was low, matter of fact. I try to keep track of dates, but nobody really follows the logs. If I toss something, Manny gets mad. Says I'm wasting inventory. Trevor felt a sharp squeeze in his chest. He glanced toward Manny again, who was now laughing at something on his screen. Has Dennis ever come to inspect? Not once in my time here, she said, sliding the cucumber slices into a bin. He calls Rachel sometimes, that's it. A thick silence hung for a moment. I thought district managers were supposed to do surprise checks. Riley gave a short laugh, bitter and quiet, supposed to. I think we're lucky if he remembers we exist. Trevor turned and walked to the sink. He washed his hands, dried them thoroughly, and began cleaning the prep table. He didn't say a word. Not yet. By noon, the lunch rush had begun. Orders flew in: dragon rolls, poke bowls, bento sets. The line was moving fast, too fast. Trevor watched Tyler grab rice barehanded to press it into a mold. He didn't stop to sanitize. Trevor stepped in front of him. Hey. Use the scoop. Gloves too. Tyler looked up with narrowed eyes. You're just a trainee, man. Chill. I'm asking you to follow basic procedure. Rachel had just walked in from the front. She heard the exchange and stepped over. What's going on? Trevor turned to her. He's handling rice without gloves. That's not okay. Rachel sighed, loud enough for the entire prep team to hear. We're in the weeds. I don't care how it gets done right now, just get it done. Trevor stared at her. You're saying it's fine to break health code? She crossed her arms. I'm saying we're short-staffed and our customers want food, not delays. Riley had stopped what she was doing. She was watching both of them, motionless. Trevor walked to the hand sink. He pulled a fresh pair of gloves from the dispenser, walked back, and handed them to Tyler. Put them on. Tyler snatched them, muttering something under his breath. Trevor looked at Rachel. We'll talk later. She didn't respond. The rest of the shift moved like a machine with a broken gear moving forward but grinding, straining. Orders piled up. A customer sent back a spicy tuna roll, saying it was warm inside. Rachel tossed it and told the server to offer a dessert. When a new trainee, a kid named Lewis, asked for help on portion size, Manny told him to figure it out or get out of the way. Trevor pulled Lewis aside during a lull. You all right? Lewis nodded, but his face was flushed. I just want to do things right, but Manny keeps snapping at me and I'm not sure if I'm slowing things down. You're new, it's okay to ask questions. Lewis looked down. I don't think they want me asking. Trevor's jaw tightened. He waited until Rachel stepped outside to take a call, then approached Manny at the slicer. You've been cutting corners, a lot. Manny didn't look up. Don't start. I've seen you use the same gloves for raw fish and cooked items. You don't label food. You sign off on deliveries without checking them. You ignore cross-contamination. Manny looked up now, eyes hard. You're not my manager. No, I'm not. Trevor stepped closer, but I care about this kitchen. And I care about the customers who trust us not to make them sick. Manny wiped his blade on a towel, tossed it into the sink, and turned his back. I don't get paid enough to care. Trevor walked away. There was nothing more to say. By 4 o'clock, the kitchen had quieted. Rachel was on the phone again, pacing near the back sink. Trevor waited until she hung up. We need to talk, in the office. She looked tired but followed him without a word. Inside the cramped space, Trevor shut the door behind them. This place is running on autopilot. Rachel leaned against the desk, arms folded. I know, he blinked. You know, I'm not blind. But I'm working 12-hour days. I cover for no shows. I deal with complaints, broken equipment, and a staff that barely listens. I've asked Dennis for help. Nothing changes. Trevor sat down. Why not say something louder, go higher? She looked at him, eyes dull. Who would I go to, corporate? I don't even know who's up there. All I get are emails with new initiatives and marketing campaigns. No one's walked through that door from headquarters in over a year. Trevor looked at her, really looked. She wasn't malicious, just exhausted, worn down to the edge. Why did you take this job? She hesitated. It used to be better. I came from store 2. We had good training, real communication. Then Dennis took over this region. Everything got looser. Now I'm just trying to survive shifts. Trevor stood. I need you to be honest with me. If someone walked in here from the health department tomorrow, what would happen? Rachel didn't answer. He opened the door. Clear your schedule tomorrow morning. We're going to have a meeting. With who? Trevor paused. With the owner. She frowned. I thought Dennis was. I said the owner. He left her standing there. Friday morning, Trevor arrived before opening. Riley was already there, cleaning the slicer with methodical precision. She looked up, surprised. You're early. Things are going to change. She didn't ask what he meant. She just kept cleaning. At 8:30, the staff began trickling in. Manny walked in last, yawning, muttering about the early shift. Trevor waited until everyone was in the prep area. He pulled off his glasses, took off the wig, ran his hand through his real hair. Everyone stared. My name is Trevor Nilsen. I own this company. Dead silence. Rachel looked like she'd been punched in the chest. Manny's coffee slipped from his hand, splashing against the floor. Trevor waited for it to settle. I went undercover because I stopped trusting the reports I was getting. I had to see it for myself. He looked at Manny. You're done here. Pack your things. You're terminated effective immediately. Manny's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He turned and walked toward the back, silent. Trevor turned to Rachel. You're not fired, but you're suspended until further notice. This store needs clean leadership and we're going to rebuild it properly. She nodded, eyes downcast. Lewis, Riley, you two have shown integrity. I see that. Riley, I want you to step in as interim kitchen lead. You won't be alone. I'll be here for the next several weeks. He looked around at the remaining employees. Sanitation protocols will be re-established, training will be redone, and we're going to earn back every bit of trust we've lost. No one said a word. But Riley stepped forward, nodded once, and said quietly, "Let's get to work." Trevor nodded back, and so they did. The dining room of Store 4 sat quiet behind the drawn blinds just 30 minutes before opening, but the prep station was already active. Riley moved with a deliberate rhythm, sanitizing the slicer, logging the temperature on the fish delivery, checking the rice cookers. Trevor stood nearby, reviewing the new compliance binder he had brought in himself that morning. He slid it across the stainless steel counter toward her. You'll enforce this starting today. It covers every health and safety protocol we're reintroducing. No skipping steps. She scanned the first tab, daily equipment sanitation logs, and nodded. Her posture was straighter than usual, focused but not anxious. I'll keep it tight, she said. But we're still light on hands back here. Should I call in anyone from the other shifts? Trevor shook his head. Not yet. I reached out to corporate HR last night. We're putting a freeze on Dennis's hiring authority. I want to vet any new candidates myself, at least until we stabilize. He moved toward the dry storage racks, jotting notes on a clipboard. The space was still cluttered, half-labeled boxes, a stack of unused containers with old tape stuck to the sides. The team would need time, but it was already cleaner than 2 days ago. As the rest of the staff arrived, Trevor watched carefully. Lewis was early again, hanging up his jacket before moving straight to the sink to wash up. He didn't look around for instructions, just grabbed the checklists Riley had printed and started knocking tasks off. Quiet, efficient. Tyler came in next. He avoided eye contact with Trevor, dumped his backpack under the prep table, and started slicing jalapenos without gloves. Hands, Riley said, not looking up from the rice warmer. Tyler flinched, tossed the knife down, and walked to the sink. Trevor watched him dry his hands, reach for gloves, then pause. I don't see how gloves make it better, Tyler muttered. We're still touching everything. Trevor stepped forward. Then this isn't the kitchen for you, Tyler blinked. I didn't mean you've had multiple chances this week. You've ignored procedures, challenged corrections, and now you're openly dismissing safety rules. We're done. Tyler looked at Riley, who said nothing, then back at Trevor. Seriously, you can collect your last check from corporate. You're off the schedule, effective now. Tyler kicked his bag out from under the table, slung it over his shoulder, and walked out without another word. Trevor turned to Lewis. You're moving up. I want you to shadow Riley the rest of the week, learn the flow start to finish. Lewis's eyebrows lifted slightly, but he nodded. Okay, I'll do my best. Trevor gave him a short nod, then stepped into the front of house to observe. Rachel was back, seated at a small table near the window, a clipboard in her lap. She wore different clothes today, civilian. No apron, no name tag. She looked up briefly when Trevor entered. I'm not here to get in the way, she said. Just wanted to sit in. He took the seat across from her. I meant it when I said you weren't fired, but if you want to stay in leadership, you'll need to earn that trust back. I'm not assigning blame, but I need changes to stick, not just in practice and culture. Rachel leaned back in her chair, tapping the pen against the clipboard. I've been thinking about that. If I'm being honest, I let things drift. I got used to low expectations, and I let Manny run the kitchen because it was easier to avoid the friction. Do you want to keep managing? I do, but I don't want to slide back into what I was. Trevor nodded slowly. Then you'll start shadowing at store 2 next week. Different team, different pace. I want you to see what structured leadership looks like again." She didn't argue, just wrote something down on the paper in front of her. All right. The lunch rush started slow. Without Tyler and Manny, the line was short-staffed. Riley stayed calm, balancing tasks while directing Lewis through the prep sequence. Trevor jumped in occasionally, scooping rice, plating orders, wiping down counters. He didn't announce himself anymore. He didn't have to. Midway through the shift, an older woman approached the counter with her receipt in hand. "I ordered the grilled eel bowl 30 minutes ago. It still hasn't come out." Lewis looked up from the prep station, startled. "I gave it to the runner 10 minutes ago." Trevor stepped forward before the sentence finished. "I'll check on it personally." One moment. He stepped into the narrow hallway that led to the service window and found the bowl sitting under the heat lamp, untouched. The runner, a teenager with dyed pink hair and chipped nail polish, was scrolling on her phone nearby. "You missed a pickup," Trevor said. She looked up, confused. "Oh, sorry, I thought someone else grabbed it." He picked up the tray and returned to the front. The woman accepted it with a tight-lipped nod and returned to her table. Trevor walked back to the hallway. "What's your name?" he asked the runner. "Kayla. You're off phones while on shift. That's non-negotiable." She shifted her weight, one hand still holding the device. "I wasn't trying to mess anything up. I just get bored waiting between runs. There's no downtime in service. If you're not running food, you're checking tables, wiping surfaces, or helping back of house." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you like the regional manager or something?" "I'm the owner." Kayla lowered her phone. "Oh, you'll stay on today, but one more issue and we'll cut you." She gave a small nod and returned to the dining room. Trevor stepped back into the kitchen. Riley was plating a dragon roll, sweat on her brow. "You need a minute?" he asked. She didn't pause. "Not if we want to keep up." He grabbed the next ticket and started assembling. By mid-afternoon, the pace had steadied. Lewis had begun taking initiative, calling out orders and prepping garnishes before Riley asked. He moved with more certainty now, shoulders squared, eyes alert. Trevor checked the temperature logs again. Every box had been filled. No gaps, no shortcuts. He looked up and caught Riley watching him. "You're thinking something," she said. "I'm thinking you've got a future here if you want it." She wiped her hands and leaned against the counter for a second. "This place could be great. It just needs people who care." He nodded. "Then let's build it." Behind them, the soft chime of the entry bell signaled a new customer. It was Dennis. He walked in wearing a navy blazer, holding a branded tablet under one arm. He stopped short when he saw Trevor near the prep line. "Trevor." "I didn't know you were in town." "I've been here all week." Dennis's smile faltered. "I meant to swing by, but I've had a packed schedule." Trevor stepped forward. "You're done overseeing this store starting today." Dennis blinked. "I don't understand." "What's going on? You haven't done a single inspection in over 6 months. You ignored multiple reports, hired people without vetting, and failed to enforce even the most basic protocols." Dennis's voice dropped slightly. "I've been managing 10 stores. My time is stretched. And that stretch has compromised safety, morale, and customer trust. We're freezing your region. Every store under you is being reviewed." Dennis looked around as if for support, but no one said anything. The kitchen stayed quiet. He adjusted his tablet under his arm. "Should I speak to legal?" "You're free to. But I'd recommend speaking to HR first. They'll walk you through the transition." Dennis gave a tight nod and left without asking another question. The door closed behind him. Riley didn't look up from the sushi she was plating. Trevor exhaled slowly. That was overdue. Lewis looked over from the rice station. "What happens now?" Trevor looked around the kitchen. "Now we rebuild, one order at a time." 1 week after the reveal, Trevor sat in a folding chair near the back entrance of Store 4. A clipboard rested on his knee, today's checklist half complete. He had stopped wearing the disguise and no one treated him like a guest anymore. His sleeves were rolled, apron tied, hands streaked with wasabi paste from helping with the morning prep. But the real work wasn't in chopping fish or warming rice, it was in reshaping how the team functioned, moment by moment. The store wasn't fixed, not yet. But it was facing the right direction. Louis stepped out of the walk-in, balancing a tray of prepped tuna. He didn't hesitate, he moved straight to the scale, recorded the weight, labeled it with the date and time, then slid it into the cold drawer beneath the prep counter. Trevor watched without interrupting. Riley emerged from the front, wiping her forehead with the back of her wrist. The lunch rush had been steady, not overwhelming, but consistent enough to test the new systems they'd implemented. "We're out of pickled dakin," she said. "I told Dennis to restock that last week. It never came." "Already called the supplier this morning," Trevor replied. "They'll drop it with tomorrow's delivery. I've switched our ordering access. Dennis doesn't have clearance anymore." Riley didn't smile, but her eyes held a sharper clarity than before. She didn't linger. She returned to the kitchen, checked the line, and adjusted the prep list for the afternoon. The crew had shrunk since last week. 2 resignations followed Manny's firing. One had been Quiet the dishwasher, who stopped showing up and never answered calls. The other, Tyler, had forwarded a terse email to HR claiming unfair expectations before disappearing entirely. Trevor hadn't fought it. The store didn't need placeholders. It needed people willing to meet a new standard. But with fewer hands, pressure had increased on the remaining team. Trevor knew they couldn't keep the current pace forever. He had already started the interview process for new hires this time, personally reviewing every resume, scheduling short one-on-ones at the store after hours, and checking references himself. A soft knock came from the glass door by the front. Rachel stepped inside. She looked different. Not dramatically, but there was a shift. Her shoulders were more relaxed and her hair was pulled back in a neater bun. She wore a fresh black blouse and jeans neither stained nor wrinkled. She carried a notepad, not a tablet. Trevor met her by the register. "How was store 2?" he asked. "Eye-opening," she said. "They run it like a machine, but not in a cold way. It's just organized, everyone owns their station, no shouting, no shrugging." He nodded once. "See anything you want to bring here? A lot. But I want to start small. They have a daily pre-shift huddle. 10 minutes. Just to check in, review the day's goals, cover any changes. I think it would help us realign here." "Good, that's yours to implement," Rachel hesitated. "I know you're still deciding whether I stay." "I am," she didn't argue. "I've owned what I let happen. If I get another shot, I won't waste it." Trevor studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You'll stay on as assistant manager for now. Riley's leading the kitchen. You'll support the front and help with onboarding. Earn the trust back, one shift at a time." She didn't thank him. She just nodded firmly and walked toward the back. That afternoon, a new applicant arrived, a culinary student from Tacoma Community College. She wore a pressed white button-up and carried her own chef's knife wrapped in cloth. Trevor met her in the back office, a quiet space now cleared of clutter and unnecessary paperwork. "I saw the job posting last week," she said. "I know there's been some changes lately." "You heard about it. Couple of my classmates work part-time here." "Word gets around." Trevor leaned forward. "Why apply knowing the store's under review? Because it's being fixed, and I want to help build something, not just pass through." He offered her a trial shift on the spot. 4 hours in, she was checking labels without prompting, asking smart questions, and wiping down her station every time she transitioned tasks. Riley watched her closely, then gave Trevor a small nod when she thought he wasn't looking. They'd found someone solid. Later that evening, Trevor met with Louis in the break area. A folding table, 2 mismatched chairs, and a binder full of training materials spread open between them. "You've picked things up fast," Trevor said. Louis looked down. "I didn't think you'd even notice me." "I notice a lot more than I used to," Louis hesitated. "I've never had a job where someone explained why things matter. Most places just expect you to figure it out or get yelled at. That's not how we're going to do it here." "Are you staying on long-term?" Trevor smiled faintly. "No, I'll rotate out soon, but I'll be checking in. Weekly visits, spot checks." I'm not going back to being a name in an email. Lewis turned a page in the binder. Can I ask something? Of course. Why didn't you just fire everyone and start from scratch? Trevor paused, because some people were worth keeping. And the ones who weren't made that clear on their own. The next day, Riley ran the first pre-shift huddle. She called the team together near the empty dining room before opening. No one talked over her. She reviewed the updated prep schedule, reminded everyone to double-check expiration dates, and handed out laminated copies of the new cleaning rotations. Rachel handled a new customer complaint later that afternoon, a woman whose order came out with the wrong sauce. Instead of dismissing it, Rachel walked to the table, apologized in person, comped the dish, and brought out the corrected one herself. When she returned to the counter, she looked at Trevor. "Better, yes," he said. That's how we move forward. By the end of the week, Store 4 had passed its unannounced inspection from the health department. The inspector had arrived at 10 in the morning, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. Trevor didn't intervene. Riley handled the tour. Every temperature, label, and sanitation log was in place. The report came back clear: no violations, no warnings, just one note at the bottom: well-managed kitchen with responsive staff. Trevor posted a copy of the report in the back hallway, near the time clock. He didn't make a speech. But he watched their faces when they saw it. Asha gave a quiet "nice." Lewis clapped once, and Riley just exhaled and returned to her station. That night, as the staff filtered out one by one, Trevor stayed behind to close. Rachel lingered at the register, tidying the tip jar and wiping down the screen. "You said you'd rotate out soon," she said. "You leaving tomorrow?" "Monday," Trevor replied, "but I'll be back." "Good. Because I think we're just getting started." He flicked off the lights one by one, leaving the kitchen last. Outside, the streetlights buzzed faintly, and the windows of Store 4 reflected a dining room finally at peace, clean, quiet, and ready for whatever came next. Trevor locked the door behind him, not as a goodbye, but as a promise kept.